Welcome to WeHackPurple podcast, where each week we meet a new member of the information security industry and learn what it's like to do their very interesting job. So I sort of have bad news this week is Odell had something ridiculously important come up and is unable to make the show. But we are going to record the show with her another day, just not live, unfortunately. Because, obviously it would be awesome to have her live, but we can't always get everything we want. So I am your host, Tanya, Janca, and we thought about getting another guest on. And then after the WeHackPurple team, actually, we talked about it internally, we thought it would just be a lot better to instead talk about what this podcast is about, which is about trying to get new people into the information security industry and all the different jobs. So I'm Tanya Janca. I am your host. This week, we are sponsored by ThreadFix, powered by Denim Group. And basically, so WeHackPurple, so I'm Tanya Janca, and I'm the founder of WeHackPurple. And I started this company specifically because, I do love teaching things, and I do love just being a giant nerd and learning cool security things and helping people fix stuff. But really, starting a company and trying to make it scale is so that lots and lots of new people could come into our industry and specifically work in the niche that is my favorite part, which is how to secure software. But there's all sorts of parts, not just my part. There's analyzing risk and helping your entire org as a whole try to have less risk and manage and mitigate what you can, manage the rest sort of thing. There's people that make sure all of the communications we have are secure. There's those people that do cryptography who make sure that things are encrypted or hashed or everything else the way they should be. Oh my gosh, we have met so many different people on this podcast, and this is just season 1. Season 2, I'm thinking we're going to switch into something more application security related because that's my favorite topic. But the point is that there are a lot of different types of jobs in our field. And so I was thinking we could take this opportunity instead of me calling around and finding other guests that could come on. I was like, what if we summarize a lot of things that we've learned so far and try to be a bit more concise about it? And then we can have Odell come in the next few days, when she's ready, and we can record it and release that. And then it's kind of like double win because we get this nice summary here. For those of you that who tuned in live and who are a bit disappointed she's not here, I know it would be twice as good if she was here. But anyway, I digress. So I wanted to talk about a few things. So first of all, some of the trends that I've noticed on the show, but no matter what jobs we've looked at, turns out there's a lot more jobs and a lot more full-time jobs on the blue team instead of the red team. So red team is bug hunting, penetration testing, offensive style security. And by offensive style security, I mean security that is attack focused, that tests your defenses, that pushes your limits to make sure, that your defenses are actually working. And it's quite important. I briefly was a pen tester for maybe 2 years before I discovered that instead I could be sort of on the other side or part of that equation where I got to do application security. So I would still do some security testing, but I would also do things like code review or helping the devs find a better architectural solution to the thing they're doing so that, our security needs were met, but also their app is super cool and functional and efficient. And so each team or person we spoke to every week basically said, there's way more jobs in blue team than red team. But yet, when I go to conferences and I look at the talks, or when I see, for instance, we've had 2 bug hunters on the show, and the show numbers were out of this world compared to other episodes. And so many people tuned in because everyone wants to learn red team. Red team is on TV shows, it's in movies, I'm hacking all the hackers and I'm going to hack them back. Or, I broke into the NSA with 1 line of code. Yeah, that's not true. But we glamorize this red team side, but it turns out that there's not that many full-time jobs in it compared to blue team. And so that was something interesting. So I've thought this for a very, very long time, but lots of other people that I talk to, they're like, I'm going to be a penetration tester. And that's what I thought too. I was like, I'm going to be a penetration tester because that's what my first mentor did. And that's what he trained me to do as his apprentice. And I was like, yeah, this looks cool because I only knew about the risk analyst people, the people that seemed to operate our firewall and who said no to me a lot, and then the cool pen tester guy that had like a snake tattoo on his arm. I'm like, yeah. And so I was like, well, which one of those people do I want to be? And I'm like, oh, that seems like the one that would be the most fun for me, especially because I'm like a hands-on keyboard sort of person. But there's tons and tons of jobs. So I'm going to try hard to think of like all the different types of jobs that we saw. So we had a couple different people on who talked about how to respond to security incidents. That's very cool. And when you do application security, you end up being dragged along on it sometimes, but not every time, which I think is nice because you kind of like get to have a little bit of it once in a while, but it's not your full-time job. So I think that's great because I find incident response really, 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 really exciting, but equally stressful. So it's like, when I get to do it, I'm like, yes, there's an incident happening and I get to respond to it and help save the day with my team. But I couldn't handle doing it every day. Like we had this really amazing person named Shelly Giesbreach on, and I know I said her name wrong. I'm so sorry, Shelly. But her name's Nerdiosity on Twitter, and she has a website and all this stuff. But like her explaining like how to get to the bottom of things, how to be super cool when there's an emergency happening. And we had Veronica Schmidt on, was it last week? I think it was the week before. And she was talking about digital forensics and specifically like how to investigate when a security incident happens. And she specializes in medical devices, and gosh darn, that was just super cool. She was talking about we have someone in the comments saying incident response isn't stressful if you plan for it. And then they corrected it with, or it's easier if you plan for it. And I agree. If you have planned for it and you are executing your plan like a hot knife through warm butter, it is pleasurable, but it's still like, oh, someone attacked my organization. Like, this is my team. This is the place I work. This is my livelihood. Or if you work for the government, for instance, or like some sort of nonprofit organization, it's like you're attacking our citizens, you're attacking our security. Like, but yes, I agree that when you can respond really quickly and efficiently, it feels really good. We also had a gentleman on named O'Shea, and he was really interesting because he talked about, so he is big into digital forensics, but also like how to build that type of program, like how to build an incident response program and a digital forensics program, and also how to get metrics on that. And if you know me at all, I really like data and metrics, and that's why I was so excited to have Aodell on because like, so is she, and she's super brilliant. But anyway, enough me fangirling. All of us at WeHackPurple were like really looking forward to her. I've been a fan for a while, but stop talking about how much I think she's awesome. Okay. So we've had those types of jobs on, like around incidents, investigating incidents, how to manage it, how to prepare for it, like create awesome plans. We have not had enough data and or like risk analysts on yet, in my opinion. So I have some coming up. We have had a lot of people that run small security consultancies on, which has been really cool. So we had, Tyrone Wilson. That guy's amazing. If you were going to just listen to one episode, I don't know, Ty's episode was just absolutely incredible. And he runs a security training company, just like WeHackPurple, except for he focuses on offensive network security. And he talked a lot about like what it's like to hire, what it's like to make sure you're doing a good job for your students, what it's like, you know, to have all these people working for you that are depending on you. And like, he's been running this business for quite a while, and that's really awesome. I feel like I want to summarize every single episode. I'm not sure if that's a great idea. Yeah, someone just shared his episode in the chat. Tyrone was like a really amazing guest. But I have like a couple other things I wanted to go through. So we had Allie Ali Mellon on, and then we also had Sasha Rosenbaum on, and a whole bunch of other people that all also agreed that soft skills or social skills are actually really, really important if you ever want to excel in tech. And so I've been saying this for a long time that they're basic life skills. And like you're not going to get anywhere if you don't communicate well and you don't listen well and you don't pay attention and you don't treat people with respect. Like if you go into meetings and you stare at the floor and act like you're not listening, people aren't like, you know who I want on my team? That weird person that doesn't ever make eye contact, that doesn't respond when you talk directly to them, that's always rude or that snaps at everyone. Like that's not the person that people are like, I want that person on my team. And so when I talked with Ali Mellon specifically, and then Sasha Rosenbaum, like I think she was the week right after, and she just added so much more to it, where if you don't have, like people call them soft skills, but basically if you don't have social skills, you just can't go very far in your career. Like you could be this brilliant, amazing genius, but you're going to have all these handlers that work around you so that you're usable, if that makes sense. Like if you're in a project and you never give updates to anyone, no one's gonna, like it just like you'll become really hard to work with and you won't go as far as you could. And there's this thing in our industry that I've seen for quite a while, and that I've had other people comment on to me about technical skills. And I've had people make disparaging comments like, she's not technical enough. It's often used specifically to talk about women, how women aren't very technical. I remember having a boss, there was a promotion, and so I was like their top tech for software development at the time. So there were 3 tech leads, and I was one of them for software development, and the other 2 were dudes. And they had decided to create like an even higher position for a technical role. And he's like, oh, if I were you, I wouldn't bother applying. I don't want you to waste your time. And I was like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, I don't really see you as technical. And I'm like, I run all your custom apps. What the F do you see me as? And so I've seen so many times people say like, oh, you're not technical enough, as though it's like the word is a weapon. But it turns out that you can go and learn more technical skills, but it's actually a lot harder to work on your social skills. And it turns out you can't reach that highest level usually without them. And I found that really interesting. Another trend that we saw, so I'm putting on my I am very biased hat. So I run a training school, and part of the reason why I run a training school is because universities are graduating people with absolutely no cybersecurity knowledge or very little. So right now, computer science people are being graduated and they might know something about identity and access management, which is good. I really want them to know it. But they won't know anything about secure coding. They won't know anything about how to be PCI compliant. So they're out there making applications that handle credit card data, and they don't know how to do it so that they don't get sued. They're having people, make all these amazing applications and just not teaching them the bare minimum of secure coding so that these applications can be safe to use and put on the internet and put actual important information into them and know that information will stay safe. And so if you've heard me in a podcast ever where I'm the person being interviewed, I often beat up on universities and colleges because I don't think it's acceptable. If you're going to charge someone $5, $10, $20, $30,000 to go to school somewhere, if they teach you how to do something, they should teach you how to do it safely. And in my opinion, that means security. And so when it comes to the types of training that exists, like if you go to university and college, you can learn how to build really cool applications, but it's unlikely, unfortunately, you're going to learn how to ensure those applications are secure and safe. And that's really frustrating. So there are lots of companies, and I'm not going to try to tell you that we're the best company on the whole planet. I mean, I'm biased. I know my mom thinks we are because she loves me, but there are a lot of companies out there that give secure training. There is this foundation, the OWASP Foundation, OWASP OWASP.org. And OWASP is a community and an international nonprofit called the Foundation, as well as all these super cool open source projects. And I'm a part of it. Probably if you're listening, I bet at least half of you are too. I love OWASP. I'm this huge fan. I've been involved for years and years, and they are part of how I learned a lot of things. If you're trying to get into our industry, a lot of people will say start there, and that's how I started. They don't have like a, like sometimes when you open up a new product you just bought, there'll be a thing and it'll say start here. I really wish OWASP had that because it is so overwhelming. When we were warming up for this show, I was saying to the sound tech, if I started trying to consume every single bit of OWASP content starting now and just like didn't stop, I bet I would die before I would finish consuming all the content because they have so much amazing content, and so it can be really overwhelming. So I would say if you're going to start with OWASP, I would start with the cheat sheets project. So the next time you're trying to do something technical and you're like, I want to know how to do this securely, look up OWASP, cheat sheet, and then whatever the thing is you're doing. There's something like, I think 102 cheat sheets. Maybe it's the late 90s or like over into the 100s. I can't remember if they've reached triple digits yet, but they have an impressive number of things. Oh, thank you for putting that on the screen. Yeah, the cheat sheet series is absolutely incredible. I would also suggest watching the OWASP DevSlop show. So I used to be a part of that project, and all the people that are a part of it are all my friends, and I think they're great. And basically DevSlop, like sloppy DevOps, it was a bunch of us trying to figure out how do we as security professionals operate in DevOps environments. And so look at a bunch of their either shows that are coming up or shows that they've already done and see if any of the titles stick out to you as like, oh, that looks cool. That's a thing I want to learn. They have a whole community built around like this one project that's very inclusive and very beginner friendly. And that's another place to start. Okay, so there's, yes, OWASP DevSlop. You can follow them on Twitter and you can follow them on YouTube. And I bet there's a bunch of other ways that you can follow them. But if you just look up that term, you will find them. They're great. Oh, and they have a meetup. So then you can get invited to all their events. So awesome. More things. So someone was asking me what the best paying fields are within information security. And I'm going to tell you that being a bug hunter, like working on bug bounties, it has been revealed from our guests, you really generally don't make any money. So I know that all the big bug bounty hunter places want you to think that you can, and there are a few people that are amazing, that are absolutely amazing, that just rule the industry, and they make lots of money and they do well. But on average, most bug hunters make very, very little money, and it's more like a hobby. And if you want to have a super cool hobby, like it's very interesting to do security testing. Getting into bug bounty hunting is cool, but if you feel that you want a full-time job, it's more likely you should become a penetration tester, either at first as an employee somewhere, and then eventually perhaps independently as a consultant. You have the ability to make more money when you work for yourself, depending upon how much you want to manage your small business or not. Another thing we found out where you don't make very much money is journalism in cyber. There are a few exceptions of some journalists that are quite famous that do really well, or they own the place that distributes all the news. But on average, we found out from our guest, Kim Crawley, and like from other communications within the industry, that journalism in general has unfortunately kind of been hit really hard by like industry disruption of like people like me writing blogs, or people like me, hosting this podcast. Like, this isn't legit news. This is Tanya's opinion based on conducting like 34 interviews on her show and then talking to lots of people in the industry. So I was very interested to find out that doesn't pay well. Another thing that doesn't pay well, so there's small business and then there's startup. So if you run your own small business and it's a consultancy, so for instance, like let's say you give training, so you go to places and you give them training in person or virtually right now. so you have like a one-to-one. So if you want to get paid more, you have to work more, right? And so that's generally considered a small business or a medium or big business if it gets bigger and bigger. While a startup is a company started with the specific purpose of having exponential growth. And so with WeHackPurple, us making online courses in the online community so that people can take courses while I'm sleeping, that is our efforts towards having potentially exponential growth, which is pretty much super exciting. Or like the previous startup I was a part of, we were making a product and it didn't work out, but the idea is that like, because it's an electronic or digital product, as many people as want to can buy it. And we are planning to run it as a SaaS or as an on-prem installation. And that means basically like the ability to have exponential growth just like really goes and goes. And talking to startup owners, yeah, you don't make a lot of money at first. So a small business owner will make some money and pay their bills at first, but it takes a while before they become quite profitable. But startup owners specifically tend to actually just be putting their own money in a lot at first. And then they have to do fundraising or bootstrapping, depending, and can continue. And so I know a lot of people have told me like, yeah, startup founders, they like just roll around with millions of dollars and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not there. But hopefully I will be one day. But like, yeah, right now it's like, should we buy the new camera? Should we wait another week? Or like, do you know what I mean? Like we have a small budget and we operate within it, and then you grow and grow, or you get investment. And so I think like a lot of people were interested to find out that you don't make that much money in those jobs versus other jobs where, for instance, we had security architects on and they do well. Security architects can do very well. Pen testers can do pretty well. Doing AppSec, you can do very, very well. Like you don't walk into like an AppSec role that's intermediate at less than 6 figures, and or even introductory roles at 6 figures, depending upon which city that you're in, and if you have some experience, like or an apprenticeship under your belt, etc. And so it was very interesting to see like which things paid more and which things paid less. And I had suspected some of them, but I didn't actually know. And I remember one of our guests, Mary Galloway, she's like, you want to know if my job pays well? I've got a pool, boy. And I was just like, oh my God, you're so awesome. I want a pool, boy. I don't even have a pool. And she was explaining like you have to work your butt off and all these different things so that she could be basically like not only understanding architecture, but how to secure the architecture in a way where like, you know, you still get the thing done. So I have seen people where they're like, I'm a security architect. I'm like, no, you just hobbled that app so it doesn't work anymore. What she does is she like figures out so the app can still be awesome, but also be way more secure. And that was really interesting to hear about. There's also, we had 2 people on. So we had Mary Moe, and then we had Barbara. God, what was Barbara's last name? It's a German name, and I know I'm going to say it wrong. Schneidner. I'm really sorry if I said that wrong, Barbara. But both of them, not only, so Barbara does architecture as well, but both of them would do a lot of tabletop exercises, which is where you run through kind of like fake security incidents, and you plan out. So you run through these fake security incidents, and then you learn if your processes work or not. And then you fix them, and you prep your team more, and you prep your architecture more, and you prep your defenses better. And you do all of these things based on sort of like tabletop exercises are sort of like really super fun games, sometimes called security exercises. And so Mary Moe, she also talked to us about IoT security infrastructure, or IoT, like the Internet of Things, so smart things, interconnected devices that aren't a laptop or a phone. And she talked about medical devices, just like Veronica Schmid. And so both of them have pacemakers, and they talked about it on the show. And Marie Moe talked about how she actually proxied her own pacemaker while it was in her body, and could interact with it and basically hack her own heart. And she presented research papers on it, and it was just absolutely amazing to hear her talk about that. So a lot of people on the show have also shared really cool stuff. But it turns out that running security exercises, being a security architect, doing AppSec, doing blue team roles as a full-time job is one, extremely secure. Like, I think that if any one of those guests on the show said, hey, I'm looking for work, and like put like a tweet or a post on Twitter or LinkedIn, that the internet would melt because so many people would want them to work for them. And so the job security of blue team was really, really interesting for me. Because at first, when I had very little experience, even though I'd been a software developer forever, it took me a while to get security experience. And then once I got some, it's effortless to find a job. But getting that first job is really, really hard. So I want to talk about that now. So the easiest way that I have seen most people get a job in security is specifically to become a SOC analyst. So SOC stands for Security Operations Center. And a SOC analyst, in my opinion, is the most patient person on the entire planet. So they tend to work in the Security Operations Center, and they spend a lot of time working with the SIM, so the Security Information and Event Management System. And what a SIM does is it takes all the alerts and all the logs and mashes it all into a place and tells you, I think this might be a problem. I think that might be a problem. And then you go chase them down and figure out if everything's okay. And that is a lot of patience. Because I didn't come from a networking background, that wasn't an option for me. So if you want to do a job like that, you need to have some networking experience. You need to have patience. You need to like solving problems. And if you have some help desk experience, you could definitely roll yourself into that type of job. But coming from a software development background where I was always like, that's ops problem, I'm a dev. That was not a role that was specifically open to me, but apparently they are always hiring for SOC analysts. And so this is definitely an easy place to get your foot in the door. Do that for a year or two. Learn about threat hunting. So that means going beyond waiting for the alerts from the SIM and actually looking for patterns yourself to try to find threats. And then you can move on to being a security network engineer, security architect for networks and systems. There's a lot of places where you can go up from there. You can also become a penetration tester. A lot of people who become penetration testers, I would say maybe 70–80% used to be system administrators. So if you're a sysadmin going into, so you might call it a workaround. Well, a penetration tester will call it an exploit. So you probably have like 70% of the skills you need as a sysadmin to walk into a network-focused penetration testing role, like running vulnerability assessment scans, instructing people how to patch things, how to harden things, how to lock them all down. It's different for web app penetration testers. So you may be the person who helps them lock everything down about their network and maybe even their cloud. And then you might just run basic scans on web apps and be like, here's what my basic scanner said. Then there tends to be the opposite side where you're a dev. So this is the track that I took. So I was a dev for a really long time. And I was like, being a dev rules. Why would I do anything else? And then I met a pen tester and he kept telling me, it's so cool. You'd be so good at this, blah, blah, blah. So I tried it and it turns out smashing things is really fun. And because I look at things and in my head, I see the code that's behind them. I can think of the logic. I'm like, I'm going to do this. It's probably doing this because of that. And so then I could also, when my tools would find things, I could, figure out if it's a real thing or a false positive. And then I could go talk to the dev and say, hey, I found this. Maybe you should check it out and fix it. That said, I think moving from a dev role into an application security role might be easier because you can start with code review, secure code review, and then learning SAST tools. And there's always someone that needs code reviewed. There's always a place for you if you're going to find all the vulnerabilities in code and then help devs fix it. So I would say the easiest job or the most common paths that I see are those. So specifically someone that knows either help desk or networking, moving into a SOC analyst role, someone who's a sysadmin, like especially help desk, then sysadmin, stepping into, a networky penetration testing role, and then a dev kind of becoming the super security focused dev, and then joining the AppSec team where they work, and then moving their way up there because you already know this huge percentage of what you need to know to do your job. You have this huge step forward. I would also say a lot of the ways that people get into these jobs is a lot of networking, a lot of telling the people where you work that that's the job you want, a lot of participating in community events, getting to know people and explaining, yeah, I've been, volunteering as part of this open source project and reviewing older code, and I've found, 23 security bugs so far. And I've been doing this, and I did like this little self-training, and I did that, and I'd really like a chance, to come work somewhere as a junior. And those are often the ways people get in. Unfortunately, so I can't help with this, but unfortunately, a lot of the places that I have seen that post job descriptions post almost oxymorons as opposed to requirements. They'll say something like it's an introductory role, it's entry-level role, you need 5 years experience. But by definition, entry-level does not mean that. Or they'll say it's a junior role and they want 5 years experience. Or they'll ask you for a bunch of certifications that will cost you $25,000 to get. And it's like, well, if I had $25,000 I didn't need, then I would not be a junior because juniors don't get paid enough that you have that much extra money, right? And so a lot of the people that I see get jobs via introductions, and those introductions often come from so within WeHackPurple, we have a community, and people introduce people, people talk to people. We introduce our grads to recruiters. You should talk to people people within the industry, and ask for introductions. Tell people that you're looking and what you're interested in. If you keep it a secret, it will remain a secret, and then you will not find a job very easily. And so the more people that you can talk to and explain what you're interested in and try to get involved in those things, the better that you will do. Okay, so I have this big list of all the things we could talk about, but I've been talking about for like 35 minutes, and I'm wondering if there are any questions, because I have so many more things that I want to talk about. So while I wait to see if anyone has questions that they want to, someone in the chat says you should apply anyways, even if the requirements are way above your level, and I 100% agree with that. I have applied to a lot of jobs before where I don't have the requirements, and I've gotten a lot of them. So right now I want to thank our sponsor, ThreadFix. So speaking of startups, so ThreadFix makes the most stupendous vulnerability management system this side of the galaxy for starters. But also, when I started my startup, Dan Cornell, one of the founders of ThreadFix, reached out and was like, how can I help? This dude gave me so much helpful advice. When you work in the security industry and you get to meet amazing individuals like Dan, like he'll just go so out of his way to help me. Same with Sheridan and all the other people that work there. They're like, how can we help you more? I'm just like, oh. And there are so many amazing people in the industry that are like the people at ThreadFix. And by the way, they're hiring. But there's lots of different groups, and when you join communities, like not just the WeHackPurple community, the OWASP community, the DevSlop community, there like Katie Paxton Fear, she was on our podcast and she was talking about bug hunting, and congratulations to her, just joined Bugcrowd this week, and that's amazing. And she has her own community called Insider PhD, because she did her PhD on insider threats, so I enjoy that cleverness. But she's really awesome, and she has this really super friendly online community where everyone talks about bug hunting, and everyone's just really nice to each other, and they kind of learn stuff and play with things and teach each other. And so if you really want to get into bug hunting, you need to check her and her community out. If you want to learn about AppSec, you should consider, being a part of OWASP, being a part of WeHackPurple, watching the DevSlop show. So if you can find the area that you're interested in, so that seems to be a big problem. It's people in our industry trying to figure out which part of the industry that's best for them. That's why we started this podcast, so we could ask what it's like what is it like to be a security analyst? And Ali Mellon told us all about it. Being able to figure out we also had two people on that talked about doing technical sales and how that works. So one of them does more like developer relations, and that was Sasha Rosenbaum. And then we had Stephanie Black on, and she was talking about, she did do security work, like hands-on keyboard sorts of stuff. And they said, you have the personality where you would be so good at sales. And sales is selling things, but Stephanie explained to us, it's way more than selling things. It's about helping her customers solve the problem, even if it doesn't mean buying their product, and building trust and just helping them find solutions and actually reach to the next level, the next level, the next level for their security posture and their program. And I remember when I was younger, I thought sales was about pressuring people to buy your thing, whether you wanted to or not. And she's like, yeah, that's the person that is not going to last the week. That's not what you need to do. You need to actually help them. And sometimes helping them means not selling them your thing and telling them about something else that your company doesn't even make, but that can help them with the thing that they need. And your honesty and you being willing to share means that I might come back to you a year later and say, so I know you do sell this thing and I think we need it. Can we talk? And her explaining this kind of new way to look at things, it made me feel a lot different about sales. Yes, someone shared the link to Stephanie Black's episode. That was really cool. So I feel like I kind of want to start to wrap up. So I'm going to tell you a few more things that might help you. So one, I wrote a book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. One sec. And I am doing book streams. So last month we did it's April 1st. So last month in March we did chapter 1. We're going to do chapters 2 through to 11 once every 4 weeks until right before Christmas. And basically, we are going to discuss what's in the book, me and a bunch of guests, and we're going to talk about risk analysis. We're going to talk about security requirements this month and basically how we can basically bake security in from the very first step of a project, which is really cool. But basically, we're doing free university lectures because the universities, I tried to get them to pick up my book and a whole bunch of them said no. And so I was like, well, I'm going to teach it for free on the internet. So there. So that is a free resource. So if you go to aliceandboblearn.com, you can sign up and we will basically invite you and remind you to come to each stream, and all of it's free. You don't have to buy the book to understand, but obviously I would prefer if you did because, I wrote a book. But so that's one free resource for you. Another thing that is not free, so WeHackPurple, my company, we have a new course coming out called Secure Coding Basics. And in it, we are going to cover, the 17 commandments that are in my book and, code review and how to do them, like how to code them, but also how to review code to see if they're missing so that you can add them in. We're going to talk about, what a secure system development lifecycle means to a dev and what you as a dev are your responsibilities. We're going to talk about, payment card industry, and if you're handling credit cards, the things you as a dev need to know. And then we're going to cover a whole bunch of common vulnerabilities, including the OWASP top 10, because I was told if that wasn't in my course, that would be the end of the world because everyone always covers it. So I covered it. And so if you go to newsletter.wehackpurple.com/secure coding course with a dash in between. So secure-coding-course. You can sign up and we will give you some early bird discount pricing. But I'm really excited for that to come out, mostly so that it exists, because when I look at a lot of the other secure coding courses, it doesn't cover it the exact way that I would. And I'm hoping to offer a fresh new perspective. And also just I want it so that at the end of the course, when you look at code and there's no input validation, that it's like in your head, you just start hearing like you just can't not see the problems anymore. That is my goal. And so then lastly, I want to thank all of you for coming along with me on this journey. So WeHackPurple wasn't even called WeHackPurple when we started just over a year ago. We just had our 1-year anniversary. And at first we started with this little online community where I would just write blogs and I charged $7 a month. And a whole bunch of you, over 100, signed up and joined me basically on this adventure. And then I created, a minimal viable product of an online course, and then over 100 of you bought it. And that was amazing. And then I studied how to make courses and then redid it and added a zillion things to it and made it way, way, way better. And then more people bought that. And then we started, we have a certification, and then I wrote my book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. And then a whole bunch of you bought that. And then we moved our community to a much, much better platform. And so now we have chat rooms and articles, and people can message each other and become friends, and we have events, and we have this knowledge base, and we have drip content, and it's just so much better now, and people are joining, and that's amazing. And having you follow me and now my team, because there are 6 of us that work on this all together, having you go on this journey with us has meant a lot to me. This constant support from our industry and our community has been so ridiculously touching. Our sponsor, ThreadFix, continuing to sponsor us and just supporting us, and even just telling us, find more sponsors. We don't want to hog all of your sponsor space. They're just so supportive and wonderful. We have so many partners. We have so many things planned in store for you. And I know AODL canceled tonight, but I have to say, summarizing all of this for you, I really hope that this has been helpful. I would love to hear feedback. I would love to hear what you think season 2 should be about, because we make this for you. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I do pick the guests based on, oh my God, she's so cool. I can't wait to have her on the show. But we made this topic specifically because we want more people joining our industry and because we want to move our industry forward. And I would love to hear from all of you what you want season 2 to be about. And so with that, I'm going to sign off. So I am Tanya Janca from WeHackPurple. You have been listening to the WeHackPurple podcast, where each week we meet a different person who works within our industry, and we learn about their jobs and how they got to where they are today, so that all of us can secure all the things. Thank you. Next week,